The billionaire stands in her lobby, gray and dying, begging to meet the daughter he told to disappear 10 years ago. His other daughters, the legitimate ones, have seen every cruel text he sent. Now they're choosing sides, and the woman he destroyed has screenshots of everything, including the 4 words that changed everything. I hope you miscarry. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. Naomi's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and she knew exactly who it was before she even looked at the screen. 3 years of this. 3 years of stolen moments in hotel rooms that cost more than her monthly rent. 3 years of promises whispered against expensive sheets that disappeared the moment he walked out the door. She was 26. He was 42. And the math never added up the way she needed it to. Marcus Whitmore, billionaire, tech genius, married father of 2. The man who'd convinced her that what they had was real, even as he made her park 3 blocks away from restaurants, even as he saved her number under a fake name in his phone, even as he scheduled their time together like board meetings that could be canceled without notice. The screen glowed with his name. The fake one, David, and she almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something in her chest, that stupid hopeful thing that refused to die, made her answer. His voice came through sharp, clipped, none of the warmth she'd heard last Thursday when he'd traced circles on her bare shoulder and talked about someday. Marcus, I was just thinking about you. Don't. His voice cut through like winter. Don't do that cutesy thing right now. I need to talk to you, and you need to listen. Something cold settled in her stomach. She sat down on her apartment couch, the one with the sagging middle cushion, the one that had never known his weight. Okay, she said quietly, already bracing for impact. You can't keep texting me during work hours. His wife almost saw yesterday. She was standing right there when when David popped up. Naomi felt her throat tighten. I texted you once, at lunch, to say I hoped your presentation went well. That's not... Jesus Christ, that's not the point, Naomi. The point is, you don't get to have access to me whenever you want. We have rules. We had rules, she corrected, her voice steadier than she felt. And they kept changing. Every time I thought I understood what this was, you moved the line. He exhaled loudly, the sound of a man whose patience was being tested by someone he considered beneath him. Look, I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me. This, us, whatever we've been doing, it needs to end. The words should have shocked her, but they didn't. They landed soft, almost expected, like rain in Seattle. She'd known this was coming the same way you know winter's arriving when leaves start to fall. When? She asked. After the election next month. I'm being considered for a position, a big one, and I can't have any complications. Complications, she repeated, tasting the word, finding it bitter. That's what I am now. That's what you've always been, he said, and there was no cruelty in his voice, which somehow made it worse. You had to know that. I told you from the beginning, this couldn't go anywhere. You said a lot of things from the beginning, Naomi replied. You said you'd never felt this way before. You said your marriage was dead. You said I made you feel alive again. All of which was true in the moment, he interrupted. But moments passed, Naomi. Grow up. The line went quiet for 3 heartbeats. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made him shift in his leather office chair. I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was so complete, she could hear her neighbor's television through the thin walls, could hear the traffic 17 floors below, could hear the exact moment Marcus Whitmore's carefully constructed world began to crack. What did you say? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out this morning. More silence, and then a laugh. Not a happy laugh, not an excited laugh, but something harsh and disbelieving. You're joking. I'm really not. Jesus, he breathed. Jesus Christ, Naomi. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why this needs to end. She stood up, her legs suddenly unsteady. I didn't do this on purpose, Marcus. Birth control fails. I thought you were on the pill. I am. I was. But nothing is 100% and you know that. He made a sound like a wounded animal. So what do you want from me? Money for whatever you need to do about this? Something hot and sharp moved through her chest. Whatever I need to do about this. Yeah, he said. And now his voice had that executive edge, that boardroom efficiency. I'll send you, I don't know, 10,000. That should more than cover it. And then we're done. We're done anyway. She felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. What if I don't want to do that? Then you're on your own, he said immediately, no hesitation. Because I'm not doing this, Naomi. I'm not blowing up my life for a mistake. A mistake, she repeated. Our baby is a mistake. There is no our baby, he snapped. There's a problem that needs to be solved. And if you think for 1 second that I'm going to leave my wife, my daughters, my position, for you and some. His voice dropped to something ugly. For some accident, then you're even more delusional than I thought. The tears came then, hot and fast. She wiped at them angrily. I never asked you to leave them. I just thought that you'd want to know, that you'd care. I do care, he said, but his tone said otherwise. I care enough to offer you money to make this go away quietly. That's more than most men would do. Most men wouldn't have spent 3 years lying to someone they supposedly cared about, she shot back. Don't turn this into some moral crusade, Naomi. You knew what this was. You knew I was married. You knew there were limits. And you crossed them anyway. Every time. She sank back onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. So that's it? You'll send money, and I'm supposed to just erase this? Erase us? There was never an us, he said coldly. There was sex. There was fun. There was an arrangement. And now it's over. The call ended. No goodbye. No apology. Just silence. Naomi sat there holding her phone, staring at the blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. 3 years. 3 years of her life given to a man who'd just reduced everything to an arrangement. Her phone buzzed. A text from him. A Venmo notification would follow shortly. $10,000. The price of her silence, her compliance, her erasure. She opened her messaging app, hands shaking, and typed. I'm keeping the baby. His response came within seconds. Then you're making the biggest mistake of your life. And she replied, maybe, but at least it will be mine. What followed over the next 3 days was a masterclass in cruelty. The text started an hour after their call ended. From Marcus, from David, from the man who'd whispered that she was beautiful when dawnlight caught her skin, that she was brilliant when she'd solved a coding problem he'd been stuck on, that she was everything he'd been missing. The first text said, "You're trapping me." She didn't respond. The second said, "This is extortion. You think you can blackmail me into being a father?" She still didn't respond. The third, arriving at 2 in the morning, said, "I hope you miscarry." She stared at those 4 words until they blurred, read them again, saved them, didn't reply. But they kept coming, dozens of them, hundreds, eventually. Messages that got progressively crueler, more unhinged, revealing a side of Marcus Whitmore that she'd never seen, or maybe had chosen not to see. You're going to ruin my life over one night, one stupid moment when the condom probably broke. You're pathetic. You're desperate. You're everything wrong with women today, thinking you can use a pregnancy to climb the social ladder. My wife is a senator's daughter. My daughters go to Exeter. What are you? A junior developer from nowhere who thought she could trap a billionaire. I should have known better than to touch you. She saved every single one. Screenshots dated and backed up to 3 separate cloud services. Printed and stored in a folder that she labeled with his full name and the year. She didn't block him. She didn't respond. She just collected evidence of exactly who Marcus Whitmore became when he felt cornered. The messages continued even after she sent back his $10,000 with a note that said, "I don't want your money. I want nothing from you." His response was immediate. "Then why tell me at all? Just to ruin me? Just to prove you can?" And she replied, her only response in that entire 3 days, I told you because I thought you'd want to know you were going to be a father again. I was wrong. That seemed to enrage him further. More texts, more venom. Things about her body, her face, her worth. Things she couldn't believe had come from the same man who'd once called her radiant. Things she saved. Every single one. And then, silence. 4 months into her pregnancy, carrying his daughter inside her body while feeling her move and kick and hiccup, Marcus Whitmore blocked her number and disappeared from her life as completely as if he'd never existed. Except, he had existed. He'd marked her, changed her, left her with a baby who would have his eyes and his stubborn chin and none of his knowledge that she'd ever wanted him at all. Naomi gave birth on a Tuesday in February, alone except for her best friend Chloe, who'd driven through a snowstorm to be there. She named her daughter Zara, which meant princess, because this little girl with dark curls and golden brown skin deserved to feel like royalty, even if her father had treated her mother like garbage. She didn't put Marcus's name on the birth certificate, didn't list a father at all, just left it blank, a space that represented 3 years of lies and one man's cowardice. She never contacted him again, never sent photos, never asked for support. She worked 2 jobs while Zara was a baby, then went back to school for her MBA while Zara learned to walk. She built a life that didn't include him, didn't reference him, didn't need him. But she kept those messages, printed in that folder, backed up in 3 clouds, waiting. For what, she wasn't entirely sure. Justice, maybe. Or just proof that she hadn't imagined how cruel he'd been. Proof that the man the world saw as a visionary philanthropist who donated to women's causes and spoke about empowering young girls was the same man who'd told the mother of his unborn child that he hoped she'd miscarry. The years passed. Zara grew from infant to toddler, to child to young person with her father's brilliant mind and her mother's steady heart. She was 7 when she first asked about her dad, sitting at their kitchen table doing homework, suddenly curious in the way kids get. "Do I have a dad?" "Of course you do," Naomi said carefully. "Everyone has a dad. Where is he?" "That's complicated, sweetheart. Doesn't he want to know me?" Something cracked in Naomi's chest. "Oh, baby, it's not about wanting to know you. You're the most knowable, lovable person in the world. He just couldn't be here." Zara had accepted that, mostly, though the question came up again over the years in different forms. "Does he know about me? Did you love him? Would he like me if he met me?" And Naomi answered as honestly as she could without poisoning her daughter against a man she'd never met. "Yes, he knows. Yes, I loved him. And yes, he would be amazed by you if he gave himself the chance." She didn't mention the texts, didn't explain that the man who'd contributed half of Zara's DNA had also wished for her non-existence. Some cruelties were too heavy for a child to carry. But Naomi knew. Every time Zara accomplished something brilliant, every time she won a math competition or built something clever with code, or showed the kind of ethical backbone that Marcus Whitmore had obviously lacked, Naomi thought about those messages and felt a grim satisfaction that he was missing this, missing her, missing the chance to know the best thing he'd ever accidentally created. 10 years. A decade. Zara turned 10 in February, the same month she was born, and Naomi threw her a party at the climbing gym she loved, surrounded by friends who adored her. And that night, after the cake was eaten, and presents opened, and Zara was asleep in her room, Naomi pulled out her laptop and did something she hadn't done in years. She Googled Marcus Whitmore. The results were immediate, overwhelming. He'd gotten that position he'd wanted, the one she'd been a complication for. He was now the CEO of Whitmore Technologies, worth an estimated $8.2 billion. His wife, Catherine, was still by his side in every photo, elegant and poised. And his daughters, the ones he'd mentioned a handful of times, were everywhere. Press releases about their admission to Princeton, articles about their charitable foundation, photos at galas and benefits. They were beautiful, these daughters. Twins, apparently, which he'd never told her. They had to be around 19 or 20 now, young women with their father's sharp features and their mother's grace. Their names were Madison and Harper Whitmore. and they seemed to be exactly the kind of privileged, polished daughters a billionaire would want. Naomi studied their faces, these half-sisters her daughter would never know, and felt something shift inside her. For 10 years, she'd kept those messages private. For 10 years, she'd let Marcus Whitmore live his perfect life while she'd struggled and built and raised their daughter alone. For 10 years, she'd been silent. Maybe, she thought, looking at the folder on her shelf, the one with his name and all his cruelty preserved inside, maybe it was time for his daughters to know exactly who their father really was. She didn't do anything that night, or the next night, or for 2 months after that. But the idea, once planted, began to grow. Because Marcus Whitmore had other daughters now, adult daughters who thought they knew their father, who trusted him, who carried his name with pride. And Naomi had proof that the man they idolized had once told a woman carrying his child that he hoped she'd miscarry, that he'd called her worthless, desperate, pathetic, that he'd tried to buy her silence and then punished her with words designed to destroy when she'd refused. She thought about it constantly, the ethics of it, the impact, whether revenge was ever justified or if this wasn't revenge at all but simply truth. One night in April, Zara came into her room while Naomi was staring at those screenshots again, the folder open on her bed. "Mom, what are you looking at?" Naomi quickly closed it. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just old work stuff." "You look sad," Zara observed, climbing onto the bed beside her. "Are you okay?" Naomi pulled her daughter close, breathed in the scent of her coconut shampoo. "Yeah, baby. I'm okay. Do you ever wish things were different? Like if my dad was here?" Naomi was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then I think about who you are, who we are together, and I don't think I'd change anything. Even the hard parts?" "Especially the hard parts," Naomi said. "Because they made us stronger. They made us us." Zara fell asleep against her mother's shoulder, and Naomi held her, this child who was wanted and loved and enough, and made a decision. But not that night, and not the next morning either. Because the truth was, Naomi was terrified. Terrified of what sending those messages would mean, what it would unleash, what doors it would open that could never be closed again. She spent the next week going through her normal routines with her mind somewhere else entirely. At her job as a senior developer at a mid-sized tech firm, her fingers moved across the keyboard while her thoughts spun in endless circles. At the grocery store, she pushed her cart down aisles without seeing what she was buying. At the park with Zara, watching her daughter climb the monkey bars with fearless grace, she wondered what Madison and Harper Whitmore were like, whether they'd inherited their father's capacity for cruelty or their mother's apparent ability to ignore it. Chloe noticed. Of course Chloe noticed. They'd been best friends since college, and Chloe had been there for everything. The first time Naomi had gushed about this brilliant, older man who made her feel seen. The night Naomi had called sobbing because he'd canceled their weekend plans again. The hospital room where Zara had been born. Every struggle, every triumph, every moment of doubt. They were having coffee at their usual spot, a corner cafe where the barista knew their orders by heart, when Chloe finally said what she'd been thinking. "You're planning something." Naomi looked up from her latte. "What?" "Don't what me. I've known you for 15 years. You get this look when you're about to do something big, like when you decided to keep the baby, like when you went back for your MBA, like when you told Marcus to keep his money. That look." Naomi sighed, her hands wrapping around the warm cup. "I found them. His daughters. The other ones. The legitimate ones." Chloe's eyebrows rose. "Okay. And they're adults now. 19, 20. Old enough to understand. Old enough to know what kind of man their father is." Chloe sat back, studying her friend's face. "You want to tell them?" "I want them to see. There's a difference." Naomi pulled out her phone, opened the photo she'd saved of Madison and Harper at some charity gala, both in designer dresses, both smiling like their lives were perfect. "Look at them. They probably think he's amazing. This great man who built an empire and gives to charity and they have no idea. No idea what he said to you, Chloe finished quietly. What he said about Zara. Naomi's throat tightened. He told me he hoped she'd die, Chloe, before she was even born, before he knew anything about who she'd become. He looked at this miracle, and wished for it to be erased. And somewhere in their fancy Manhattan penthouse or whatever, those girls think their dad is a hero. Chloe reached across the table, took Naomi's hand. So you're going to tell them. Should I? It's not really a question of should. It's a question of will you be able to live with yourself if you don't. That night, Naomi sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open and that folder beside her. The physical one, because somehow holding the printed pages made it more real, more undeniable. She'd labeled each message with the date and time it was received. Created a spreadsheet, because that's what her organized mind did, cataloging the escalation of his rage. Message 1, sent April 3rd at 7:23 p.m. You're trapping me. Message 15, sent April 4th at 1:16 a.m. You're pathetic. You're desperate. You're everything wrong with women today. Message 47, sent April 5th at 3:42 p.m. My wife is a senator's daughter. My daughters go to Exeter. What are you? There were 137 messages total, spread across those 3 days. 137 pieces of evidence that Marcus Whitmore, when cornered, when scared, when faced with consequences he didn't want, became someone unrecognizable. Or maybe, she'd thought sometimes in her darkest moments, maybe this was who he'd always been, and she'd just been too in love to see it. She opened a new email draft, stared at the blank screen, started typing. Madison and Harper, you don't know me, but delete. Delete. Start again. My name is Naomi Richardson, and I need to tell you something about your father. Delete. Too dramatic. Try again. This is going to be difficult to read, and I'm sorry for that, but delete. Stop apologizing. Try again. She spent an hour on that opening line, another hour on the second paragraph. Writing and deleting, trying to find words that were honest without being cruel, truthful without being vindictive. Because the truth was, she didn't want to hurt these young women. They hadn't done anything wrong. They were just daughters who loved their father, the way Zara would have loved Marcus if he'd given her the chance. But they deserved to know, didn't they? Deserved to know that the man they trusted, the man whose name they carried, had told a pregnant woman he hoped she'd miscarry, had called her worthless, had tried to buy her silence and then punished her when she refused. Around midnight, Zara appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mom, why are you still up? Naomi quickly minimized the email. Hey baby, just finishing some work. Can't sleep? Bad dream. Zara climbed into her mother's lap, even though she was getting too big for it. All long limbs and growing bones. Naomi held her anyway, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair. Want to talk about it? Zara was quiet for a moment. I dreamed I met my dad. And he didn't like me. Naomi's heart fractured. Oh, sweetheart, that's just a dream. That's not real. But what if it is real? What if the reason he's not here is because he wouldn't like me if he knew me? Naomi pulled back, looked her daughter in the eyes. Zara, listen to me. The reason your father isn't here has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with him. You are brilliant and kind and funny and brave. Anyone who doesn't see that is missing out on knowing the most amazing person in the world. But why doesn't he want to know? It's complicated, Naomi said, the same answer she always gave. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense. Sometimes people run away from the best things in their lives because they're scared or selfish, or broken in ways that have nothing to do with the people they leave behind. Would he be happy if he met me now? Naomi thought about Marcus Whitmore, about his perfect public image, about Madison and Harper, and the family he'd chosen to acknowledge, about the messages that said Zara should never have existed. He should be, she said carefully. Anyone should be. But happy or not, I'm happy. I get to be your mom. and that's better than anything. Zara hugged her tighter. I'm glad you're my mom. Me too, baby. Me too. After Zara went back to bed, Naomi sat staring at that email draft for another hour. Then she deleted everything and started fresh. Madison and Harper, my name is Naomi Richardson. 10 years ago, I had a relationship with your father, Marcus Whitmore. I was 26. He was 42 and married to your mother. For 3 years she paused. How to explain it? We're together seems too simple. Had an affair, too clinical. She settled on, saw each other in secret. He told me his marriage was over. He told me things I wanted to believe. We had no idea he had another daughter being born while our mother took us to Disney World. There was bitterness in her voice now. The first crack in her composure. He took us to celebrate our 10th birthday that February, the same month Zara was born. He bought us matching necklaces and told us we were his greatest achievement. And somewhere across the city, you were giving birth to his daughter alone. I wasn't alone, Naomi said. My best friend Chloe was there. But yeah, he wasn't. Have you? Harper hesitated. Have you confronted him? About any of this? No. I sent the money back and never contacted him again. He blocked my number eventually. As far as I know, he thinks this all just went away. Well, it didn't, Madison said. And now her voice had steel in it. And he's about to find out exactly how much it didn't go away. They talked for 2 hours. Naomi told them about Zara's birth, about the struggles of those first years, about going back to school while working 2 jobs, about every milestone Marcus had missed. Madison and Harper told her about their childhood, about growing up with a father who was physically present but emotionally distant, about their mother Catherine who they loved, but who seemed to live in willful ignorance of her husband's flaws. We always knew something was off, Harper admitted. He'd disappear for hours. Get calls he'd take in another room. Mom would get this look on her face like she knew but didn't want to know. You know? Naomi knew. She'd seen that look on her own face in the mirror during those 3 years. The look of a woman choosing to believe comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. When they finally hung up, it was after 5. Naomi had 20 minutes before Zara got home from her after-school robotics club. 20 minutes to process that her daughter's half-sisters wanted to meet her. That Madison and Harper Whitmore, these young women with every privilege Zara had been denied, were on her side. She was making dinner when Zara burst through the door, backpack bouncing, talking a mile a minute about the code she'd debugged. Mom, you should have seen it. The whole program was failing because of one misplaced semicolon. One tiny mistake that broke everything. But I found it. I fixed it. That's my girl, Naomi said, pulling her into a hug. Always fixing what's broken. Zara pulled back, studying her mother's face with those sharp eyes. Those eyes that were Marcus Whitmore's eyes, even if he'd never looked at his daughter. You've been crying. Happy tears, Naomi said. I have something to tell you. Something big. Zara sat at the kitchen table, suddenly serious. Okay, you know how I've told you that your father has other children? Other daughters? Zara nodded slowly. They found out about you. And they want to meet you. The expression that crossed Zara's face was complicated. Hope and fear and confusion all mixed together. They do? They really do? They really do. Their names are Madison and Harper. They're 19. And they think their little sister sounds pretty amazing. I have sisters, Zara whispered, like she was testing out the word. You have sisters, Naomi confirmed, if you want to meet them. Do they? Zara hesitated. Do they know why he's not here? Why he never? She couldn't finish the sentence. They know, Naomi said carefully. They know everything, and they're not happy with him about it. But they want to know you. That's what matters. When? Tomorrow, if you want. They're in New York, but they said they'd fly here this weekend. Madison said they could get on a plane right now if you wanted. Zara looked terrified and excited in equal measure. Tomorrow's too soon. I need to think about what to say. You don't have to say anything special, baby. Just be yourself. That's all they want. What if they don't like me? What if I'm not what they expected? Naomi knelt beside her daughter's chair. Zara, look at me. Anyone who doesn't fall in love with you the second they meet you isn't paying attention. You're brilliant and funny and kind. You're exactly what they should expect, because you're exactly who you're supposed to be. That night, after Zara finally fell asleep, after asking 100 questions about her sisters and trying to imagine what they'd be like, Naomi got another call. Marcus Whitmore's number. The real one. Not the fake name he'd saved her under a decade ago. She stared at it for 3 rings, 4, 5, then answered. You told them, he said without preamble. No hello, no pretense. Just accusation. I told them the truth, Naomi replied calmly. There's a difference. How dare you? His voice was shaking with rage. How dare you contact my daughters? How dare you try to poison them against me? I didn't poison them, Marcus. I showed them who you are. I showed them the messages you sent me. The ones where you told me you hoped I'd miscarry. The ones where you called me worthless. The ones where you tried to buy my silence. Your words poisoned them, not mine. You had no right. I had every right. They're adults. They deserve to know they have a sister. They deserve to know what you're capable of. This is extortion, he hissed. This is blackmail. You're trying to ruin me. I'm not trying to do anything to you, Naomi said. I don't need anything from you. I never did. I just wanted your daughters to know the truth. You want money. That's what this is about. You finally realized you could cash in on... No, she cut him off. I don't want your money. I sent back the money you offered me 10 years ago. Remember? I built a life without you. Zara and I are fine. Better than fine. Then what do you want? Nothing, absolutely nothing, which seems to be what terrifies you most. The line went quiet. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. Not softer, but calculated. If you think Madison and Harper are going to choose you over me, you're delusional. They're my daughters. I raised them. You're just some woman I slept with a decade ago. They already chose, Naomi said. They called me today. They're flying here this weekend to meet Zara, their sister, your daughter, the one you tried to erase. You're lying. Ask them yourself, though I have a feeling they're not taking your calls right now. Marcus's breathing was heavy on the other end. You've ruined everything. No, Naomi said quietly. You did that yourself. I just made sure someone finally saw it. She hung up before he could respond. The weekend came faster than Naomi expected. Madison and Harper flew in Friday evening, checking into a hotel downtown. They'd offered to come to Naomi's apartment, but she'd suggested neutral ground instead. A cafe near the waterfront that Zara loved, where they could talk without the pressure of being in anyone's space. Zara changed outfits 4 times. Mom, what do you wear to meet your sisters for the first time? What says I'm cool but not trying too hard? Just wear your favorite jeans and that blue sweater, Naomi suggested. The one that makes you feel confident. But what if they're super fancy? They live in New York and go to Princeton and probably have designer everything. Then they'll think you're refreshingly authentic, Naomi said, helping her daughter with her hair. But honey, they're just people. Just 2 young women who are probably as nervous as you are. You think they're nervous? I know they are. Harper texted me this morning asking what your favorite color is because she wanted to bring you something and didn't want to get it wrong. She did. Zara's face lit up. What did you tell her? Purple. But I also told her you'd love anything they brought because the thought matters more than the thing. They walked to the cafe together, Naomi holding Zara's hand even though she was getting too old for it, feeling her daughter's palm sweaty with nerves. 2 young women stood outside, both tall, both beautiful in that effortless way that comes from good genes and better resources. But when they saw Zara, something shifted in their faces. Recognition, wonder, the same eyes looking at each other across a divide of years and circumstances. Madison spoke first. Zara? Zara nodded, suddenly shy. That's me. I'm Madison. This is Harper. We're your sisters, Zara finished. You're my sisters. Harper's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, we are. Can I hug you? Is that weird? It's not weird, Zara said, stepping forward. And then they were embracing. These three sisters who should have known each other all along, who were robbed of a decade together by one man's cowardice. Naomi stood back, watching, her own tears flowing freely. Madison pulled back first, studying Zara's face. You have his eyes. Everyone says that, Zara replied. But Mom says I have my own heart. That's the important part. You definitely have your own style, Harper said, gesturing to Zara's sneakers, which were covered in hand-drawn equations. Did you draw those? Zara nodded, suddenly animated. It's the quadratic formula on the left and the Pythagorean theorem on the right. I got bored in math class and... You drew math on your shoes because you were bored in math class? Madison laughed, a real laugh that transformed her careful expression. That's the most you thing I've ever heard. Is that bad? That's amazing, Harper said. We can't even balance our checkbooks without an app. You two are at Princeton, Zara said skeptically. Mom told me. You're obviously smart. School smart, Madison corrected. But you're real-world smart. Build things smart. That's better. They went inside, ordered drinks and pastries, settled at a corner table where they could talk without being overheard. For the first hour, they kept it light. Favorite foods, favorite movies, what Zara wanted to be when she grew up, which was apparently a robotics engineer who also wrote code for accessibility technology. I want to make things that help people, Zara explained. Like, there are all these people who can't use regular technology because it's not designed for them. I want to fix that. Our father's company has an accessibility division, Madison said carefully. It's actually one of the few parts of his business that we're proud of. You could, maybe someday you could. She trailed off, the weight of their complicated family situation settling over the conversation. Zara looked down at her hot chocolate. Does he know you're here? He knows, Harper said. We told him yesterday. Told him we were meeting you whether he liked it or not. What did he say? That we were making a mistake. That you and your mom were trying to manipulate us. Madison's voice was flat. That if we did this, we'd be choosing her over him. Zara's face fell. Naomi reached for her hand, but Madison got there first. Hey, she said firmly. Look at me. We didn't choose her over him. We chose the truth over lies. We chose knowing our sister over pretending you don't exist. There's no choice in that. It's just what's right. But I don't want to ruin your relationship with your dad, Zara said quietly. He's still your father. He is, Harper agreed. And maybe someday he'll be the father you deserve too. But right now we're just focused on being your sisters. If you want us. Do you? Want me, I mean, Zara asked. And she looked so vulnerable in that moment. This brilliant 10-year-old who'd spent her whole life wondering why she wasn't enough for her father to stay. Are you kidding? Madison said. We've been waiting our whole lives to meet you. We just didn't know it until this week. They stayed at the cafe for 3 hours, talking until the staff started giving them looks. Then they walked along the waterfront, Zara between her sisters, pointing out her favorite spots in the city. The robot museum where she'd spent her 8th birthday, the library where she'd checked out her first coding book, the park where she'd taught herself to solve a Rubik's Cube. By the time they got back to Naomi's apartment, Zara was comfortable enough to show them her room, her projects, the robot arm she'd built from a kit but modified to play rock, paper, scissors. This is incredible, Harper said, watching the mechanical fingers form a perfect paper. You did this yourself? With some help from YouTube, Zara admitted. But yeah, I like figuring out how things work. She gets that from her father, Naomi said from the doorway. The ability to see how systems fit together. The stubborn refusal to give up until something works. Madison turned to her. What does she get from you? The kindness, Naomi said. The belief that technology should serve people, not the other way around. The courage to build something even when she doesn't know if it'll work. That night, after Madison and Harper had gone back to their hotel with promises to return in the morning, after Zara had fallen asleep with a smile on her face, Naomi sat in her living room thinking about how much had changed in 1 week. From sending an email she'd been terrified to send to watching her daughter meet the sisters she'd never thought she'd know. from carrying secrets alone to sharing the burden with people who understood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "Thank you for telling us. Thank you for raising someone so extraordinary. Thank you for not keeping her from us even though you had every right to. We know this wasn't easy. We know our father put you through hell. But we're so grateful we get to know Zara now. We're going to make up for lost time. We promise." Naomi typed back through tears. "She's been waiting for you without knowing she was waiting. Thank you for seeing her, for choosing her, for being the sister she deserves." Madison and Harper stayed for a week. They extended their trip, canceled classes, told their mother they needed this time. Catherine Whitmore called Naomi on day 3. "Mrs. Richardson, this is Catherine Whitmore, Marcus's wife." "I know who you are," Naomi said carefully. "I'm not calling to defend him," Catherine said immediately. "I'm calling because I just found out about you. About what he did. About your daughter." "He never told you," Naomi said. "It wasn't really a question." "He told me the situation had been handled," Catherine said, her voice tight. "I didn't ask what that meant because I didn't want to know. I'm very good at not wanting to know things." "That must be exhausting," Naomi said, not unkindly. "It is," Catherine admitted. "My daughter showed me the messages yesterday. All of them. I had no idea he was capable of that kind of cruelty. You must think I'm terrible." "I think you're human," Naomi said. "I think you made choices that seemed right at the time. We all do." "I want to meet her," Catherine said suddenly. "Zara, my husband's daughter, my daughter's sister, if you'll allow it." "That's up to Zara," Naomi replied. "But I won't stop you if she wants to meet you." "Thank you," Catherine said. "And I'm sorry. For not knowing, for not looking. For every year she grew up without a father because my husband is a coward." "Your daughters aren't," Naomi said. "That's something." "That's everything," Catherine corrected. Catherine came the next day. She brought a gift, a first edition of A Wrinkle in Time. Because Madison had told her Zara loved science fiction. She cried when she saw Zara's face, the resemblance to Marcus undeniable. "I should have known," she kept saying. "I should have insisted on knowing." "But you're here now," Zara said, with that simple grace that children have when adults complicate things. "That's what matters, right?" "Right," Catherine agreed, wiping her eyes. "That's what matters." They had dinner together that night, all of them. Naomi and Zara, Madison and Harper, Catherine. 5 women connected by one man's choices, deciding to build something better than what he'd left them. Marcus tried calling his daughters repeatedly. They didn't answer. He sent emails they didn't read. He showed up at their apartment in New York, and they told him they needed space. Space to get to know their sister. Space to process what he'd done. Space to decide if they could forgive him, though none of them were sure they could. He tried different tactics. Anger, then guilt, then bargaining. "I can set up a trust fund for Zara," he told Madison over a voicemail she played for Naomi on speaker. I can make this right financially." "It was never about money," Madison had texted back. "It was about you being a father. About you being a decent human being. You failed at both." The breaking point came 2 weeks after that first cafe meeting. Marcus showed up at Naomi's apartment building. She was coming home from work, Zara at a friend's house, when she saw him in the lobby. Security had called up, but she'd been in a meeting, hadn't gotten the message. He looked older than she remembered. Grayer. More worn. The last 10 years hadn't been as kind to him as his bank account suggested. "Naomi," he said, "we need to talk." "No," she replied, heading for the elevator. "We really don't. I've spent 10 years thinking about what I'd say if I saw you again," he said, following her. "All the ways I'd explain or justify or—" He stopped. "There's no justification, is there?" "No," Naomi agreed, her hand on the elevator button. "There's not." "I was scared," he said. "When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. Everything I'd built, my marriage, my career, my reputation, it all felt like it was about to collapse." "So, you tried to make me collapse instead," Naomi said. "You tried to hurt me so badly I'd just disappear. Take the problem with me. Yeah, Marcus admitted. That's exactly what I did. And I've regretted it every day since. The elevator opened, but Naomi didn't get in. She turned to face him fully. You don't get to regret it now and have that mean something, she said. You don't get to show up a decade later and apologize and expect forgiveness. You have a daughter who is extraordinary, who is brilliant and kind and everything you could have hoped for, and you chose not to know her. I know, he said. My daughters have made that very clear. Your daughters are better people than you are, Naomi said. They saw those messages and chose Zara anyway. They chose truth over comfortable ignorance. They chose to be the family you refused to be. I want to meet her, Marcus said. Zara, I want to try. Why? Now? After 10 years? Because I'm running out of time, he said, and something in his voice made Naomi look at him more closely. The gray wasn't just age. The worn look wasn't just stress. He looked sick. What aren't you telling me? Pancreatic cancer, he said flatly. Stage 4. Diagnosed 3 months ago. Prognosis is not good. Naomi felt the world tilt. I'm sorry, she said automatically, then hated herself for it. Why? You're not sorry. Why would you be? I'm sorry for anyone facing death, Naomi said, even people who don't deserve my sympathy. But if you think that's your ticket to a relationship with Zara, you're wrong. That's not how this works. I know, Marcus said. Madison made that clear too. She said if I want to be in Zara's life, I have to earn it. Not by being sick, not by being sorry, but by actually doing the work, being the father I should have been all along. Can you do that? Naomi asked. Can you look at her and not see a mistake? Can you love her the way she deserves? I don't know, Marcus said, and at least it was honest. But I'd like the chance to try. If she wants to meet me, if you'll let me. That's not my decision, Naomi said. It's hers. Always has been. She told Zara that night, sat her down and explained everything. That Marcus was sick, that he wanted to meet her, that it was completely up to Zara whether she wanted that or not. I don't have to? Zara asked. Even though he's dying? You don't have to do anything, Naomi confirmed. Not for him, not for anyone. This is your choice, baby. Zara was quiet for a long time. I think I want to, she finally said. Not because he's dying, but because I want to know. I want to look at him and see if there's anything there worth knowing. And if there's not, then at least I'll know, Zara said. At least I won't spend my whole life wondering what if. They met the following Saturday. Neutral ground again, this time a park with wide walking paths and plenty of space. Madison and Harper came too, solidarity and support. Catherine stayed home, giving them this moment without her presence complicating things. Marcus was already there when they arrived, sitting on a bench, looking smaller somehow than he had in Naomi's lobby. When he saw Zara, something shifted in his face. Recognition, wonder, regret. All the things he should have felt 10 years ago, arriving too late to matter but arriving nonetheless. You must be Zara, he said, standing. I know who you are, Zara said. You're my father. Marcus flinched at the word. Yeah, I am. They walked together, the 6 of them, Naomi and Catherine on either side, Madison and Harper flanking their father and sister. Zara asked questions. What's your favorite color? Blue. Do you like math? Love it. Always have. That's where you get it from, Naomi said quietly. The math gene. What do you like to build? Marcus asked. Robots, mostly. Things that can help people. Like accessible technology for people with disabilities. Madison says your company has an accessibility division. We do, Marcus confirmed. It's actually my favorite part of what we do. Maybe I could see it sometime, Zara said. If you wanted. I'd like that, Marcus said. I'd really like that. They didn't fix everything in that first meeting. Didn't erase 10 years of absence with one afternoon in a park. But it was a start. A beginning of something that might eventually look like a relationship. Or might not. Either way, Zara would be okay. She had her mother. She had her sisters. She had herself. Over the next 6 months, Marcus tried. Not perfectly, not consistently, but he tried. He invited Zara to visit Whitmore Technologies, showed her the accessibility lab, introduced her to the engineers who were building the kind of technology she dreamed about creating. He set up a college fund, which Naomi initially refused until Zara pointed out that it wasn't charity. It was him finally doing something a father should do. He came to her robotics competition and watched her team win second place, pride evident on his face even if the words wouldn't quite come. He got sicker. The treatments weren't working. By month 4, he was in and out of the hospital. By month 6, the doctor said it was time to say goodbye. Naomi brought Zara to the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon in November. The room was full of flowers, cards, all the trappings of a man whose life had touched many people, even if he'd failed the ones closest to him. Madison and Harper were there. Catherine, too. All of them keeping vigil for a man who'd never quite figured out how to love them the way they deserved. Marcus's eyes opened when Zara entered. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice weak. "Hey," Zara replied, pulling a chair next to his bed. "How's the robot coming?" "It's good. I solved the grip strength problem. You'd be proud." "I am proud," Marcus said. I know I don't have the right to be. But I am." Zara took his hand. "I forgive you," she said simply, "for not being there. For the things you said to Mom. For all of it. I forgive you." "Why?" Marcus asked, tears sliding down his face. "After everything I did, everything I said. Why would you?" "Because holding on to anger would hurt me more than it would hurt you," Zara said. "And because you tried. At the end, when it mattered, you tried. That's more than nothing. It's so much less than you deserved." "Maybe," Zara agreed. "But it's what I got. And I'm choosing to accept it and move forward." "That's the bravest thing I've ever heard," Marcus said. You're going to do amazing things, Zara. You already are." "I know," Zara said. "Not arrogant, just certain. Mom made sure I knew." He looked at Naomi then, standing in the doorway. "Thank you," he said, "for raising her right, for giving her everything I didn't, for being enough when I was nothing." "She was always enough," Naomi said, "with or without you." Marcus died 3 days later, surrounded by all his daughters, the ones he'd raised and the one he'd tried to forget. His last words were to Catherine, apologizing for all the ways he'd failed her. His last gesture was reaching for Zara's hand, holding it until his breathing stopped. The funeral was massive. Tech industry giants, politicians, philanthropists. Everyone who'd known Marcus Whitmore the visionary came to pay respects. But in the front row sat 6 women who'd known different versions of him. Catherine, who'd loved a man who couldn't love her back fully. Madison and Harper, who'd grown up with a father who was present but distant. Naomi, who'd been collateral damage in his carefully constructed life. Zara, who'd been denied a father because of his cowardice. And Chloe, who'd been there for all of it, the friend who'd never left. After the service, after all the important people had offered condolences and left, the 6 of them went back to Naomi's apartment, ordered pizza because no one had the energy for anything else, sat in her living room that felt too small for all of them but somehow exactly right. "So," Harper said, breaking the silence, "what happens now?" "Now we keep being sisters," Madison said, looking at Zara. "If you want." "I want," Zara confirmed. Catherine cleared her throat. "I've been thinking," she said. Marcus left everything to be divided between his 3 daughters. All 3. He changed his will after he met Zara, made sure she was provided for. But more than that, he left her something else. She pulled out an envelope. This was in his personal effects. "Addressed to you." Zara took it with trembling hands, opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, handwritten and a key. The letter was short. "Zara, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I spent 10 years running from you, and 6 months trying to make up for it. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But I want you to have something. The key is to my personal lab at Whitmore Technologies. It's yours now. The space, the equipment, The resources. Build whatever you dream of building. Help whoever you dream of helping. Be the person I never quite managed to be. You're already so much better than I ever was. Keep being that. Be brilliant. Be kind. Be everything I should have taught you to be, but your mother already did. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. But I'm grateful I got to know the daughter I didn't deserve. Marcus. Zara read it twice, tears streaming down her face. He gave me his lab. He did, Catherine confirmed, along with a research budget and full access to the company's resources. You can start working there as soon as you want, after you finish high school, obviously. But it's yours, your space to create. I don't know what to say, Zara whispered. Say you'll use it, Madison said. Say you'll build amazing things and change the world the way we know you will. Okay, Zara said, looking around at her family. This strange, complicated, broken and repaired family that had found its way to each other through pain and truth, and the stubborn refusal to let one man's mistakes define them all. Okay, I will. That Christmas, they all spent it together. Catherine hosted at the Whitmore House in Connecticut, the first time Naomi and Zara had been there. It was strange and sometimes awkward, navigating these new relationships, figuring out how to be a family when the foundation had been built on lies and betrayal. But they were trying. Zara showed Madison and Harper her latest robot design. Catherine taught her how to make the family's traditional gingerbread cookies. Naomi and Catherine had a long conversation about forgiveness and moving forward, and what it means to love people who hurt you. And somewhere in all of it, they found moments of real joy, real connection, the kind of family bonds that aren't given by blood, but earned through choice. On New Year's Eve, they all made resolutions. Catherine resolved to ask questions instead of avoiding answers. Madison resolved to trust her instincts about people instead of their public faces. Harper resolved to speak truth even when it was uncomfortable. Naomi resolved to let people in instead of always being strong alone. And Zara resolved to build technology that would make her father proud and her mother prouder. 5 years later, at 19, Zara would give a TED Talk about accessible robotics that would go viral. 10 years later, at 24, she'd be running the accessibility division at Whitmore Technologies alongside her sisters, who'd joined the company to help transform it into something better than their father had built. 20 years later, at 30, she'd receive a humanitarian award for her work, creating adaptive technology for underserved communities. And in her acceptance speech, she'd thank her mother for teaching her that strength isn't about never breaking, but about how you rebuild. But on that New Year's Eve, she was just 10 years old, surrounded by the family she'd found in the most unlikely way, holding her mother's hand and watching fireworks explode over the Connecticut sky. "Mom," she said quietly. "Yeah, baby? I'm glad you sent that email, even though it was scary." "Especially because it was scary," Zara said. "Because sometimes the scariest things are the ones most worth doing." Naomi pulled her close. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," Zara said. Then, looking at her sisters, "From all the best." Madison raised her champagne glass, sparkling cider for Zara. "To the best," she said. "To family," Harper added. "Not the one we were born into, but the one we chose." "To new beginnings," Catherine said softly. "To truth," Naomi said. "To us," Zara finished. "To us," they all echoed. And somewhere in that moment, in that imperfect but honest gathering of women who'd been hurt by the same man but refused to let his legacy be only pain, something beautiful was born. Not revenge, not even justice, really. Just the simple, radical act of choosing each other, of building something better from the broken pieces, of being family not because of DNA or legal documents, but because they decided that these connections, these women, were worth fighting for. The receipts that Naomi had kept for 10 years, the screenshots that had seemed so important, were filed away now. Not forgotten, but not needed anymore. They'd served their purpose. They'd revealed the truth. And from that truth, unlikely as it seemed, had come something that looked surprisingly like love.